Focus of Buildback Better's derailment has been on Senator Joe Manchin. Democratic leader Chuck Schumer also took aim this week at Senate Republicans for congressional gridlock. Joining us now, Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri, a member of GOP leadership. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good to be with you, Mike.
Senator Blunt, your Democratic colleague Joe Manchin arguably single-handedly sunk the president's Build Back Better bill this week, but that overlooks the 50 GOP senators who were no votes as well. Here is President Biden Tuesday making an impassioned plea on behalf of families he says would benefit from passing that legislation.
Imagine being a parent, looking at a child, and you can't afford. You have no house to borrow against. You have no savings. It's wrong.
How do you respond to that criticism from the president?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that families are facing right now is the inflation. Inflation numbers as high as they've been in 4 decades. They impact families at the grocery store, at the gasoline pump, when they pay their home heating bills. Putting more money into the economy at a time when the economy is already overheated, I think is just a bad idea. And obviously, we want to get people back to work. There are jobs available. People are trying to get people to come and work with them and to make the country function economically. We can't solve every problem by just dropping money on top of more money. I thought the Congress made a big mistake and the administration made a big mistake right out of the box in March of this year by deciding after 5 bipartisan bills to fight back COVID and what COVID could do to our economy. All Democrats, all on their own, decide we're going to spend another $1.9 trillion in what they call the American Rescue Plan in an economy that, frankly, Mike, clearly at that point did not need to be rescued. There were things that need to be done, but just sending another $1.9 trillion in has created a big problem. I think another $2 trillion in this Build Back Better idea will also create a big problem. And the families are suffering, whether the administration and the Democrats in the Congress want to admit that or not. This is not a transitory problem. It's a real problem. And this is no time to make that problem worse.
Senator, one of the casualties of the collapse of that bill is the enhanced child tax credit, which expires at the end of the year. According to the Urban Institute, continuing the benefit could have a significant impact on child poverty, reducing child poverty to about 8.4% from 14.2%, a fall of roughly 40%. Is that a compelling argument to extend it?
Well, I think this is one of the problems and one of the gimmicks in the bill, frankly. You know, we doubled the child tax credit in the 2017 tax bill. There's a cap on that credit based on income. Senator Manchin has repeatedly said that one of the problems he has with the bill is that sending money to every family that has children under 18, the families that make, every family that makes up to $150,000, and many families that make up to $400,000, if you look at the House plan, just simply doesn't make sense. You know, putting a cap on families in need is what we can do, should do, and would do in the country, and I think could do in a bipartisan way. Again, we doubled the child tax credit just a handful of years ago, and we need to look at that if that's no longer meeting the need of moving kids out of poverty. But families that make $150,000, for instance, aren't in poverty in Missouri. I don't think they're in poverty almost anywhere in the United States, and it's a big mistake to assume they are.
Another argument being made for the enhanced child tax credit is it would bolster financial security and spur economic growth in Missouri by reducing taxes on the middle class and those striving to break into it. How do you respond?
Well, if you look at the Build Back Better plan, the second biggest spending in that plan is eliminating the tax deduction that almost totally benefits the richest Americans, $230 billion going to restore the tax deductibility of all your state and local taxes. There's already a $10,000 deductibility for every family. I just, what we see with the child tax credit is a great example of what Democrats want to do with this entire bill. They started the child tax credit at this level in March, and now here we are 6 months, 8 months later, and they're saying, well, we can't stop that program, the program we just started.
Right.
And that's exactly the kind of gimmicks that the Buildback Better, or some of my friends call it the Buildback Broker, package does. They assume that once you start all of these programs, you'll never be willing to stop them. And so you've got a $1.7 trillion of spending paid for over 10 years, but most of that money is spent in the first 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And the child tax credit would be another example. Let's extend it for a year, and we'll have exactly the same argument again next year. Now, how are we going to extend this this $500 billion program for the second year, even though supposedly we're going into a program that's fully paid for? Those are the kind of gimmicks that Joe Manchin and every Republican in the Senate were offended by, and Americans are going to be offended by them too if they ever have a chance to hear that bill debated, as we're now debating it publicly once we see the specifics of the bill.
Senator, Democrats have expressed their interest on moving forward with a vote on Build Back Better after the new year. If Democrats were to scale back the bill at some point even more, or to break out some provisions and try to pass them as standalone bills, are there any parts of Build Back Better that you could see Republicans potentially supporting?
Well, I'm sure there would have to be. Now, we've never really seen Build Back Better, but with a bill that over 10 years, if you extend all the programs, would spend $4.9 trillion, surely there's something in there that I would be for. Senator Stabenow and I have worked for years to try to see that we treat mental health like all other health. Mm-hmm. That's a relatively small item in this bill. I think it's in there, but that's an item, if we put on the floor by itself, Republicans and Democrats would vote for. I think we've extended this program and expanded it a couple of times since we first were able to get it passed in 2015. Of course, there are things in there that you could be for, but I don't see how anybody could in good conscience support a bill that, if you take all the gimmicks out of the bill, you're going to be putting another $5 trillion into the economy over a decade, and an awful lot of that goes into the economy immediately. 6.8% inflation could become something bigger than that, and 6.8% is way bigger than we can handle right now.
Senator, you're retiring after 24 years of service in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. The new senior senator from Missouri will be Josh Hawley. You two have diverged on everything from certification of the 2020 electors to support for the infrastructure legislation recently passed by the Senate. Senator, does this reflect an ideological shift on some of the biggest issues that is good for the GOP?
Well, I think that when you look at the future of our party, the future of our party is to focus on the things that we have done well in recent years. Obviously, border security, regulatory policy, tax policy would be at the top of that list. And once again, our friends the Democrats are helping Americans figure out the difference in us and them. What we were doing in the previous 4 years was producing great economic results. Even the battle against COVID produced 5 major bipartisan bills. I think the way that voters reacted just last month in the elections in New Jersey and Virginia show that there is a real resurgence of people rethinking the difference in the two parties. And I think the Republican Party is going to do very well in that discussion and that debate and those elections next year.
One of your colleagues, John Thune, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, is weighing a retirement announcement. Senators Richard Shelby of Alabama, Rob Portman of Ohio, plus Richard Burr and Pat Toomey in the swing states of North Carolina and Pennsylvania are leaving already. And of course, you. First, have you had any conversations with Senator Thune? And second, are you concerned that any hopes of future bipartisan moments in the U.S. Senate will leave with you all?
Well, I think the country is resilient and strong and understands the importance of finding solutions. Senator Thune and I came to the Congress 25 years ago. We're close friends. We work together in the Senate leadership. Certainly, the country will benefit if he decides to stay in the Senate, and this is just a decision that he has to make. Certainly, in my case, it seemed to me that time to bring this chapter to a close, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to be doing next year. Ben Card and I are working on a couple of major issues, the mental health issue I mentioned earlier, what we could do with more health research. What did we learn from COVID? What do we need to do to enhance testing? I think this is going to be a great opportunity for the Congress. Certainly, I hope Senator Thune continues to be an important leader in our country, and I look forward to working with him between now and the end of next year.
Senator Blunt, thank you. Always good to speak with you.
Thank you.